Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, where I bring you the best in the brightest world of business, entrepreneurship, and professional hockey to help you harness your own inner tenacity and drive your career forward. I'm thrilled about this one, folks. My guest today on the podcast is former NHL Hall of Fame defenseman Chris Pronger. Chris was drafted second overall by the Hartford Whalers in '93 and also played for the Blues, the Oilers, the Ducks, and my hated Philadelphia Flyers. I'm an Islander and Sabres fan, so I hate the
Flyers
Flyers.
Colors on for you.
No, we'll let that one go. And he's appeared in the Stanley Cup finals with 3 different teams and won the Cup with the Ducks in 2007. He also won the Hart Memorial Trophy as the NHL's most valuable player for the 99-2000 season. A mainstay on Team Canada, Chris won Olympic gold medals at the 2002 and 10 Winter Olympic Games and is a member of the Triple Gold Club. Pretty cool. And I'd literally be here for the next 20 minutes if I list all of his accolades. But Chris is a force and a force of nature. So I'm excited to dig in. Chris Pronger, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I am thrilled to have you here, and some of the folks here may know you. Right after we talked, I texted a couple of my friends who are hockey buddies. We grew up as Islander fans and Sabres fans, and like, dude, you having Pronger on? All right, let's. And we started sending videos. We started sending videos back and forth to each other, and there was one, and I'll get to it in a little bit. It was an interview you did where you completely I don't know. We'll get to it. This guy was talking shit to you. I forgot his name. I'll bring it up in a minute. And the way you handled it, man, it was like stand-up comedy, and it was pure brilliance. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But I want to talk about your upbringing, man. You grew up in a pretty remote part of Canada where hockey really wasn't on TV all the time, but that's what the kids did, right? Out on the pond all day. Tell us a little bit about that upbringing, and was that kind of like that outsider mentality that you carried through with you?
Yeah, from a super small town in northwestern Ontario. About a 20-hour drive from Toronto, so I'm not from the hockey mecca. Every Saturday night we'd watch Hockey Night in Canada, and that was kind of our thing. Outside of that, we just played the game. We'd play road hockey. My brother and I would shoot pucks at outside near the garage. We'd play in the basement. We'd play at the outdoor rink. Obviously, structured practice and games at the Dryden Arena. But otherwise, it was just kind of something we did with our friends every day, whether it was spring, summer, fall, winter. We were always active and outdoors.
So this is interesting. I had Dave Scatchard on the show a number of months ago, and I assume you're familiar with his story, kind of similar, getting injured on the ice and ending his career, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But the part that was really interesting to me was like hockey was kind of like the only choice growing up in that area. And he kind of felt that he was forced to be physical and forced to be tough because that was part of the game. Did you feel the same way, or was that something kind of in you already? Like he had to find it and almost felt like an actor out there.
Yeah, no, that's me. on the ice. I think just competitive and always played with an edge from a young age, and that's kind of how I just learned to play the game and play physical, play hard. Play at a high level and just compete and want to play against the best and test yourself against the best.
Absolutely. And going up the ladder there, like, what was that feeling, man, when you get drafted? There's a quote, I think you said somewhere, you're like, no one remembers a second draft pick, right?
No, that was Alexander Daigle that made that quote. And
he made that quote.
Lesson. Don't speak too early.
Yeah, exactly. And tell us a little bit about that feeling getting drafted. That's every kid's dream in Canada, right? Like, getting drafted to the NHL. Yeah, what was that feeling like for you and your family?
It was special. We had a lot of friends and family there. I think knowing going into the draft, you're going to go, top 5, probably top 3, was a good feeling. Knowing you're not going to have to sit around and wait too long. But at the same time, it's still stressful. It's still exciting. And you're just waiting for that rush of emotions when your name gets called. And certainly one step of your dream come true to get drafted and then to, figure out where you're going to have to go earn a job and play the game that you love.
So were you excited about going to Connecticut to go and play for the Whalers at the time? Or was there like this dream team that you wanted to be drafted by? Or you didn't really give a shit?
I really didn't care at that point. I was excited to be drafted. Hartford had moved up from the 6th spot to pick me at 2, and they were excited to have me, and I was excited to have the opportunity. I think it's merely just looking at it as an opportunity to continue to get better and test yourself against the best players in the world. And Hartford was an interesting spot, but that's where I got my beginning.
It's interesting too. I mean, you felt wanted, right? Like they traded up to get you. You didn't just fall to them. They didn't wait to say, all right, let's see who's around at the. They traded up. They wanted you. They showed that commitment. So that had to tell you something. That also probably had to tell you that, hey, listen, I'm coming into the league. I got to step up and show up. Do you recall your first game stepping onto the ice? I'd love to hear what that was like.
Well, preseason,
If you can remember.
I played all 7 preseason games, and then we had a little bit of a protracted negotiation over my contract,
All right,
which went down to the wire. There's a signing date before. At that time, there was a signing date before. If you weren't signed by, I think it was October 1st or whatever the date was. If you weren't signed by that date at midnight, you couldn't play that year. So my contract negotiations went right down to like 11:40 that evening,
jeez.
and ultimately we got the contract done. But it was there was some stress levels, and it was I was already kind of in my head planning out what I was going to be doing. At that time I was going to play on the Olympic team. That was 1994. So I think that was Lillehammer. It was 94 Lillehammer.
In Norway? Yeah.
I think. And then, so I was going to go to the Olympics, obviously play junior. I was going to bounce around a little bit and continue to try to develop. And thankfully we got the contract done and I was able to start my career and kind of get acclimated to the NHL.
And who was that dude that welcomed you the hard way the first time, your first NHL fight, man? You got to remember your first time. You're like, shit, I got to throw it down now.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, that's a good. You know what? I don't remember.
I mean, someone had to challenge you. It wasn't like Ty Domi, but someone.
Yeah, no. My first NHL goal was against your vaunted Islanders and Ron Hextall. That was nice.
Hextall. Hextall. I mean, the first. Right, like so let's take it back to that moment, and you had to remember that, right? Like, because that's every kid's dream when you're on the ice in the pond, 20 hours from Toronto, and you're shooting on your friends there, and you're emulating some of your favorite players on the ice and how they celebrate. Like that first goal, man. Take us back to that moment.
It was special. I mean, it wasn't exactly an end-to-end rush. I got the puck at the blue line. I walked the blue line like maybe 1 or 2 steps, and then ripped it through a screen and. He was catching air as it hit the net, so it was nice. But it was nice to get it against Hexy, who obviously, had a storied career up to that point, and his time in Philly, and then with the Islanders. So it was nice to get it against him, and against a player that had the name recognition, and not I scored against some random. It was against Ron Hextall.
No, it's Hextall. Yeah, that was my only teams. Let's see if I can remember. It was like Steve Thomas, Pierre Turgeon, Kasparaitis. Who was that thug on that team?
Mick Vukota?
Oh, man. Mick Vukota, dude. That guy, he could barely skate, man. But he could, he could, right? Every team's got one of those. That was my team back in the day. That had to be the worst arena to go to. The Coliseum, Nassau Coliseum, the Mausoleum.
It was, yeah. It was old school. Well, let's just use that term.
It's still there, man. Dude, they've tried multiple times. They're trying to turn it into a casino. What's that?
Work into it, right? Didn't they fix it all up?
Dude, you could put lipstick on a pig, but it's still the Coliseum, man.
This is true.
They just changed the outside and they fixed up the bathrooms, but no one plays there. The Islanders are now in the UBS arena on the border of Queens and Long Island, man. Beautiful arena.
Yeah.
If you have a chance to check that out. So moving on. I mean, 2 years in, and the Whalers trade you, right? They trade you for Brendan Shanahan. I mean, he's a legend as well there too. Were you like cool with that? Like, what was that like? Like shit, like these guys wanted me and now they traded me.
It was my welcome to the business side of hockey. That summer, I was given the term, "You're our franchise player. We are not looking to trade you." And of course, I then go home and, train a little bit and have some fun and fish and golf and do whatever. And I was fishing with our head coach, Paul Holmgren, for a few days. And then he got to Thunder Bay as he was flying home, called into the office, and our GM, Jim Rutherford, told him that he had just traded me. So that was nice. Spent 3 days up in northwestern Ontario fishing muskie and walleye, and then basically got told the player he was just with got dealt.
So let's talk about your time in St. Louis and under Coach Keenan. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here. I mean, he whipped you into shape.
He did. He did. You know, it was probably the best thing for my career. I think when you look back on his tenure as a head coach throughout Philly, Chicago, New York, you know, then St. Louis at that point, he certainly had guys that he would pick on the team and kind of, you know, beat them down and then build them back up. And certainly fitness was a big component of that. And, you know, I think that was really the start of me taking my game to that next level. And then I took it from there. But it was not an easy first year in St. Louis. There was a lot of boo birds on home soil. And
Mm,
it was tough. But you know what? It hardened me up. It when you go through things like that, it certainly made me a tougher player mentally and physically, and allowed me to kind of really come into my own and decide for myself what type of player I wanted to be, and then put the work in, put the time and effort in to hone your skills and get your body right in order to play the style that I played and play it at a high level for 82 games plus the playoffs.
it's a lot. And correct me if I'm wrong. That's when Gretzky came on late onto that
Correct.
team, right? What was it? What was it like to play with the great one? And what did you learn from a leadership perspective from him?
Well, I think him coming in at the time when he did it, you know, just prior to the deadline, it gave me a reprieve from the Boo Birds because everybody was excited to see him and they forgot
Hmm.
about me. So it allowed me a little bit of time to kind of get my feet underneath me, give my mental clarity a breather, and kind of flush that out. And you know, I just got back to playing the game, and obviously learning from him and seeing how he handled the media, interacted with his teammates, interacted with the fans, and kind of just the traveling road show that was the great
I'm
one at
sure.
that point. It was a great learning experience, and certainly, you know, as I look back on my career, he really having that opportunity to play with him really helped my career out a lot.
What I mean, aside from Wayne Gretzky, who else was it in your career that you really looked up to as far as like how they led, and not the coaches. I'm talking about your teammates, how they led on the ice, how they led by example, and even how you kind of think about it now, like how those leadership lessons transcend into entrepreneurship, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah, I think, you know, as a young fiery captain, I was 23 years old, and you know, had the chance to play with some, you know, Gretzky's of the world, and
Legends.
you know, here in St. Louis, played with Brett Hull and Al McInnes and Jeff Courtnall and Grant Fuhr, and you know, some legends of the game at a young age. So I was able to kind of sit back and kind of soak it all in early in my career, and then I was given the captaincy at 23, and you know, still fairly green at that point for the NHL in that era. There wasn't a lot of young players. And so, you know, kind of working my way through it. And I think as my career went along, I got the opportunity to play with Lemieux in the '02 Olympics, you know, Gretzky and Yzerman and Sakic and players
Awesome.
like that in '98 during the Olympics. And so, you know, as I got a chance to just kind of watch, sit back and kind of, you know, be a fly on the wall and see how they handle themselves, how they deal with the media, how they prepare for games and practices and things of that nature. You're able to kind of soak it all in, how they handle situations and experiences during the course of a game, and what they're saying, what they're not saying, and things like that. So you're kind of soaking it all in and being a sponge. And by the time I got traded from here, I got to Edmonton. You're learning more to listen than you are to speak and maybe scream and yell and maybe try to motivate and things of that nature. And you're just kind of feeling it out and seeing when the right time is to speak.
How did you manage off the ice relationships? How did you manage, friends and loved ones being on the road all the time and trying to keep in touch? I mean, that's got to be hard. I mean, I've had other professional athletes on, and they say that's one of the hardest things to do is to stay focused in the game and also give your about to start a family and get
Yeah,
married and all that and develop relationships. That's got to be tough, Chris.
it is hard. It's super hard, especially when you're committed and focused to your craft and focused to developing and getting better. And it takes a lot. You have to be fully immersed in your sport, and your loved ones and your family are secondary at some point during the course of that. And it takes a toll. You know, you have to choose the right people to kind of connect with, friends, family, loved ones, wife, kids, all that stuff. It's never easy. That's for sure. I think we've seen that time and time again. It takes its toll, especially during a long career, and then you get moved, and you immediately get 22 friends when you walk into a locker room.
And you tell them.
They're left either to pack up and move, or they're coming along and don't know a soul. So it can be a daunting task at times, and certainly they're the ones that bear the brunt of it when you're playing and having fun and doing what you love to do and as a passion, and they're along for the ride.
And obviously hockey's a brotherhood, but what's it like when you get traded and that first time you walk into the new locker room and maybe a week ago you were, beating the crap out of each other? Is that just kind of par for the course? And you're like, hey man, let's hug it out.
Yeah, it's not all the time. Sometimes it can be hard to turn the page. And, I know when I went to Anaheim, we had just played them in the conference finals when I was with Edmonton. And there was some heated moments and it was certainly a rivalry. But you go in knowing we're teammates now, and I think when Teemu Selanne and I were always butted heads, and Sean O'Donnell and I had butted heads in the playoffs, and there was a few guys that you have run-ins with, and I think for me and Teemu that first day when we got in, my brother had played with him in Anaheim, so I knew him a little bit, but still wanted to kill him. and it's funny, I just talked about it, but you come in, you hug it out. You're like, you kind of let the group know, like, we can turn the page. You guys can cut the cord, and everybody can be fine. So it was, a couple tense moments, but after the first couple days of practice, and everybody kind of files in line and understands kind of how we're going to work. It becomes a non-issue.
So I have a couple of hockey questions here that I have to kind of check the box on. Comparing winning the Stanley Cup and hoisting that up versus winning the gold medal, could you rank one higher as an accomplishment than the other, or are they such unique?
They're both
experiences.
Yeah, they're both incredibly unique and both completely different. One, you spend 10 months of your life towards winning the Stanley Cup, and you're immersed in it, the blood, sweat, and tears, the heartache, the injuries. It just 10 months is an incredibly long time to try to win something.
It's a long season.
Yeah.
Hockey season is long.
It's the longest in pro sports. And then you get the Olympics where you're there for 2 weeks. I think it's 13 or 14 days total, maybe 15. And from the time you get there, practice, play, practice. And then you're in the medal rounds and you're just go, 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 go. You don't really get. It's unique and it's amazing. And when you win, it's incredible. When you lose, it sucks. But it's so fast and everything goes so quickly that a lot of times you don't really have a chance to really soak it all in and enjoy the experience and enjoy it all, because you're just go, 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 and going to the next game, going to that practice, just kind of trying to recover. You're in the middle of your season, so you're already exhausted. And then you're kind of bouncing around, traveling around. And, especially when you got to fly to Europe and fly to some of these places, you're jet lagged and all that kind of stuff. So it takes its toll on you. But when you win, that euphoric moment is incredibly.
It's all worth it.
Yeah.
And that feeling when you hoisted the Stanley Cup, man, again, like every kid's dream, right? Take us to that moment.
Yeah.
Anaheim.
You finally win. Luckily for us, we had scored a 6 goal, so we were winning 6-2 with 6 minutes left. So
it was pretty much done,
and it was just like killing time and out there, finishing the game, and you could see the buzz in the Honda Center was kind of elevating with each minute that's coming off the clock, and as you get closer and closer, and it's coming, and the clock strikes 0, and everybody piles off the bench and into the scrum, and it's an incredible feeling. And then to get the cup and be able to raise it over your head is something that every kid dreams of. And especially when they play hockey, I didn't grow up thinking I had the opportunity to play in the Olympics and win a gold medal. I grew up thinking I was going to win a Stanley Cup, and everything revolved around winning a Stanley Cup. So it was, a dream come true.
What'd you do with your night with the cup?
I got the cup a couple times. I took it back home to Dryden and showed it off and took photos with everybody and did that. And then I had it again in California. I had a big cup party and had the band Sugar Ray come play, and
Oh, nice.
local Newport Beach guys, they came and gave up a part of their night to come shred with us, and it was an incredible experience, and probably one of the top 5 all-time cup parties from what I understand.
Oh shit.
So it was pretty epic.
Did those two dudes come with you everywhere, or do you have the cup by yourself?
Oh, do you mean the cup guys?
The cup dudes,
yeah. One is with it at all times.
Like he's next to you in the bedroom, next to you, just standing there.
Well, he's around. He's around.
It's a funny one. So fun fact, I interned for I went to University of Buffalo, and I interned for the Sabres when I was up there, and I had the opportunity to kind of meet the guys. That was like the Dominic Hasek era at the time, who literally welcomed me into the locker room, and I sat on the couch next to him watching NASCAR for an hour.
Nice.
Fun fact, Dominic Hasek loves NASCAR, and he was just so welcoming and warm and everything. But that was a year that they lost to
Dallas
to Dallas when Hull kicked the puck in, and
well,
I was the guy
on. He didn't kick it in. He had his toe in the crease,
but it deflected off his.
No,
he
put it up to his stick and put it in.
But his foot was over the crease line.
Stupid rule.
Yeah, and Buffalo was not happy about that, and they didn't even have time to review it, and that place erupted. But I was opening the door for the cup to come in. That was my job, and I was getting pelted with everything you could imagine because they were throwing shit at the cup. So that was one of my highlights, one of my hockey highlights, my claim to fame there. Nice. So I want to like kind of plow through the hockey stuff and get to where you are now. Toughest opponent on the ice as far as throwing fist, man.
Oh God,
who gave you a hard time?
That wasn't my job. I played with Tony Twist, and arguably could have been the hardest. Him and Joey Kosher were the 2 hardest punchers in the league, bar none.
They didn't let up.
No, it was every ounce of their fiber was going into every punch.
You felt it.
Yes.
Jeez.
You were going to feel it. If they connect, you're going to feel it.
Jeez. So speaking of connecting, you took a lot of hits. You gave out a lot of hits, and I want to talk about the time that you got hit in the chest and went down. And I watched the clip a few minutes before, and it's scary. What's it like now when you see that clip again? What kind of memories does that bring up?
Yeah, I remember the incident. I remember when it hit me, it stung a little bit. I lost my breath. I covered the puck up, got the whistle, and then in my head, I'm like, all right, just get up, get to the bench. Don't let these fans in Detroit see you on the ice. That type of mentality. And in my head, I'm telling myself to get up, but I black out. But on the video, you can see I stand up, I kind of start going, and then crumple, down I go. Next thing you know, I wake up and I'm kind of looking up at the banners above me, and I'm looking over at the bench, and guys are crying, and I didn't really know what was going on. And then got in the ambulance and told them, my parents are at the game. I'm like, you got to tell them I'm okay.
Yeah.
And then spent the night in the hospital, and then flew back to St. Louis and started doing all the heart stuff and checking out to see what actually happened. Was I gonna be okay? What was the whole extent of it?
But this is the same, for anyone listening out there, the same injury that we saw the Bills' Damar Hamlin go through, and he was out the rest of the season. Do you think back then you came back too quickly?
I mean, I don't know. I was out for about 20 seconds. I was given a clean bill of health, so I don't think so. As I talked to the heart doctor, we went. I wore a heart monitor for 24 hours. I did all.
You went through the test.
I did
it all.
A battery
you were clear.
tests. I did a whole pile of stress tests. I talked to her about short-term effects, long-term effects. Could this happen again? All that kind of stuff. And she was basically like, there's so many things that have to happen in sequence, and you be hit at the exact moment after all these things have happened before your heart's beat. It's nanoseconds. And she's like, it's like winning the lottery. And
Jeez.
And it happens. It happens to little league players. It happens to younger kids a lot, just because they're not fully formed and developed and things of that nature. And the next person that it happened to in pro sports was Damar Hamlin 25 years later. So
I mean, yeah, that's a long period of time.
It happens very infrequently, and it's merely just a timing thing.
Yeah, there was a kid in my town in Long Island, a younger kid. His name was Robbie, and it was a number of years ago playing Little League, and he got hit and he lost his life.
Yeah.
And they have every year they have a thing called Robbie's Run, and they raise money for research and
Yeah.
everything. So it is pretty serious.
As as I researched it happens a lot to Little League baseball players. They get either the pitcher gets a line drive back and hits him in the chest, a third baseman coming in gets hit with a line drive. It happens more frequently to younger kids.
Yeah, it's scary. Now there's protection out there. So just getting back to hockey for a moment, like how do you think the league has changed for better and worse from since you retired?
Well, there's been a lot of changes in the I guess more. Some rules have been changed. Some rules have been enforced more. I think the mentality of the player coming up through minor hockey, that's where everything starts, is through minor hockey. It's hard to change something once you get to the NHL. That's how
you're pretty set.
You're, as you come through minor hockey and how you play the game and kind of what your mentality is and how you like to play the game. Everybody plays it differently. Some play more physically than others. I would say at this stage, as you go through minor hockey, fewer and fewer kids are playing a physical, hard-nosed brand of hockey. That's just the way the game's played now. So therefore, when they come into the league, they're not playing that way.
But isn't that a crucial part of the game? Like the self-enforcement, right? It's a physical game.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you want to be safe. We have modern advances in safety, and we don't want anyone to get hurt. But part of the game is hockey, is that enforcement. Otherwise, players are going to take advantage of situations that they shouldn't. So it has to self-regulate.
That yes. You see all the time, player, good, clean, open ice hit, the guy's got to fight. You see, if somebody runs somebody from behind, go fight them. If somebody does something dirty, go fight them. If somebody spears a goalie, go fight them. But on a clean open ice hit or a clean hit along the boards, hitting is allowed. Like,
it's fair game.
People can be hit. Like when I first came in the league, it was like, kid, get your head up. And yeah, they might have went over and had a conversation and say, hey, don't touch them. And then if they had a problem, they'd be like, okay, well, let's go then. But it wasn't a reaction to the actual hit. It was a conversation which led to tempers flaring, which led to, okay, let's go.
I don't think the fans hear all those conversations. I mean, I was privy to it because I got to spend a lot of time close to the ice. There's a lot of talking in hockey. There's a lot of conversations before the gloves come down. Did you have a conversation with Bieber before you smashed him into the boards at the All-Star game? I have that picture. I shared it this morning. I showed it to everybody. Your smile on your face when you pushed him into the boards, man. You knew you were going to do that, right?
Funny enough, I didn't even know the camera was there.
It's such a good picture, man.
I had been kind of sticking with him in front of the net, and the puck went into the corner, and he blindly started running in there. I'm like, oh boy, this kid!
Look at that smile! Look at that smile!
Not ready for this. And I put my stick on his lower back and kind of just gave him the old "how's she going" up and down his back, and he was
little massage. Yeah, that's a classic, man. And there has to come a time, and for the fans out there, you took a stick to the eye, which pretty much ended the career. That's not how you wanted your story to end, right?
No, I would also say that very, 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 very few people get to leave the sport, whatever sport it is, on their own terms. No, how many people are John Elway that win back-to-back Super Bowls and then retire on their own?
Brady's pretty much the only one.
And even Brady, people might say, "Oh, he stayed 1 year too long."
Well, we all say that.
So, I mean, every player is going to be very, Gretzky left on his own accord, but I mean, who knows?
Well, this is the interesting transition point because I had this conversation about Brady and why he didn't want to retire. In 1 minute, you're going from being the absolute best or one of the best in class athletes at your sport, and then the next day you're not. The next day you're not. I mean, I can't even imagine that. What was it like that first days, weeks, months after retirement when you were like, all right, that chapter of my life is over, and what's next?
Yeah,
you have kids, you have a family.
It's daunting. I think for me, I got hurt in the middle of a contract, so I had time to try to figure it out. I had time to get healthy, work on my eye, my vestibular system, my concussion issues. my body. At that point, I think I'd had 13 surgeries. So, it was just I had a little bit of a runway to kind of get healthy. A lot of guys don't. They don't have that runway. So they're immediately looking for 2.0, 3.0, whatever it is. What can they do? Am I going to stay active? And they're just bouncing from one thing to the next because there's no real plan in place, and there's no idea of what you like to do. What's a passion? Are you interested in business? Are you interested in coaching? Are you interested in staying in the game of hockey? Are you interested in doing something else? And so it's not until you're done and now you're thinking to yourself, what am I going to do? And I think players need to understand that it's a finite period of time when you can actually play pro sports. Some longer than others. Some careers get shortened because of injury or skill. And so how long that is, who knows? You never know. So it is integral and important for players to think about life after immediately. As much as 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old doesn't want to think about life after, they have to start thinking about being smart with their money, thinking about what interests them outside the game, reading books, reading the paper, understanding what's going on in the world to a certain degree. But also you still have to perfect your craft and continue to develop and work at your, whatever your sport is, work at your game and get better. And so it's 90% craft and how to develop, and 10% maybe not life after, but what interests you outside of the sport, so that you have a little reprieve from the game and you're not driving yourself bananas, which I did early in my career. I just to think about every single loss or every mistake, and it drives around, and sometimes it stunts your growth and development, and you need a little bit of outside interaction, so to speak, where you're outside your little bubble that you're immersed in when you're playing your sport, and you're able to kind of get away from it all.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment. Let's talk about the mental health element to it. And correct me if I'm wrong here. A lot of these guys in any sport, especially hockey, that's all they grew up with. That's all they know. A lot of them didn't get formal education. They went from being 16 into the minors, and hockey was their whole life, and that's all they think about. Are you working now with some of the current players and recent retirees on how to stay in the right mental frame, how to think about life after hockey? Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah. That's something we talk about with the NHL alumni, is how to engage current players and then, alumni in how to think about 2.0, 3.0, how to transition into, let's call it, a regular citizen, because you're not a pro athlete and you're not playing a sport, and you're back in the real world where you don't have a schedule. You're used to being told where to go, what to do since the age of 4 or 5, and somebody's taking you there, and then you show up, and then you do what you do, and then and you're immersed in it 24/7. And now all of a sudden you need to figure out what you're going to do with your time and what's your schedule look like, and nobody's giving you a set schedule. You got to set it on your own. You got to do your own thing. You got to, so it's more about use of your time and having structure and having an understanding of what allows you the best path to success. And for most athletes, it's having structure. It's having an understanding of what your day is going to consist of, and making sure you set up a calendar to make you have a similar feel and look to your day that you did when you were playing.
Right, because when you're a professional athlete, there's a schedule. You got to be on the team bus. You got to be at practice. You got to be out of the hotel. When your free time is, which is not a lot during the regular season. And some players are able to adjust to it, and some are not. So I want to talk about your time after hockey in management, in the front office with the Florida Panthers. What was that like, to be sitting up in the press box now watching the game instead of being on the ice?
Well, you learn real fast. While you may help put the players on there, that's where it ends. You can't make them play better. You can't develop them. You've got development staff for that. You've got coaches for the other part. You've got all that type of stuff. And it's really, you have to kind of extract yourself out of the playing aspect and more about in the developing and kind of growing and building, through that system. And so you have to really kind of you're immersed in it day to day, but you kind of have to extract yourself out of the wins and losses, or it's going to eat you up. And you have to think about, the steps that it takes to become a good team, a great team, a winning team, a cup winning team. And so it's the development and watching the maturation process of the players and kind of seeing what their ceiling is. And then as you see that over and over, you get a better understanding of which players are in that open window and how can you go acquire them.
What do you think you learned about yourself during that time in management before leaving?
Yeah, patience. I think as a player, you have a much bigger outcome on the game. Obviously, you're immersed in it. That's what you're doing. You're there to win. And when you're in management, it's selecting the players, and then it's the contracts, and then it's the whole the overview, or the 360-degree view of the team and kind of prospects and draft picks and all that stuff, and how they all come together, the pieces that fit, the pieces that don't fit. And that's the exciting part about it. That's the fun part is pieces then come to fruition and come together and seeing success and then growing together and taking that next step. And that's the fun part.
I wanted to yeah, I wanted to ask this earlier because I have vivid memories of playing NHL '99 in college, sitting in our house off campus in Buffalo, and playing with you. Is it surreal to play video games with you in it? And like the same thing now with your kids going back to those games?
I don't play video games. I'm terrible.
I mean, you had to at least try it once and try yourself on the ice.
Yeah, I may have played back then. I don't play now. There's too many buttons. I used to have an Atari Sega 2-button guy.
Yeah, now I try to play the Nintendo Switch with my kids, and I'm trying. There's like 30 buttons on it.
You got two thumbs or two fingers and thumbs, and I'm like, oh god, 2 joysticks.
Yeah. It's way too complicated.
Yeah.
So let's bring the story up to the present, and I want to talk about Well Inspired Travels, which is inspired by your wife's father and his affinity for traveling during his time battling cancer. And you used traveling during your career, especially post hockey, as a therapeutic and a grounding force. Please share the story, the background for everyone out there.
Yeah, I think for us, post career, trying to get healthy. We traveled a fair amount just to get away and kind of get away from it all. Get to a beach, get to a warm, sunny climate, and feel the sun on your face, and work out a little bit, have good food, and just kind of get away from the stresses of life and continue to work on your health. It was there was obviously a lot going on the first year and a half when I was hurt. Is he coming back? What's his health like? He looks good. That type of stuff. Looks can, be deceiving. You don't really know what's going on in somebody's head and how they feel or their eyes, etc. So, that could get frustrating at times when people are always asking like, hey, when you come back and you look great. And I'm like, yeah, I look great because I'm in shape.
But you don't feel great.
I don't know about this part, but, I think that's the issue that players struggle with is that it's not cut and dry. One player can come back in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Another guy, it takes a year and a half. Some guys never. And it's not a broken arm. He's out 4 weeks or he's out 6 weeks. Broken leg, he's out 2 months, whatever. There's no definite time frame. It's very inordinary. And it can be, fans don't understand sometimes that they want you to play, they want to watch you, and I get that.
Yeah, but you're a human. You're a human. You're not a robot.
Exactly. So they don't. There's a human element to it. That they probably don't understand because they're fans and they're passionate about their teams. And they want you there because
they want you. You're a winner.
Exactly.
You're a leader. They want you on the ice.
It's a matter of extricating yourself from that situation and getting away and traveling a little bit would kind of the way to decompress and get away and continue to work on your health and so that was a great way to get healthy. Obviously a luxury to be able to do that, and forever grateful for Mr. Snyder for allowing me to do that, to get healthy and get back to me it took a couple years to kind of get through the vestibular
Back to
issues,
Chris.
the eye issues, the concussion symptoms, and things like that. And I was like 40, 41 before I started to feel half decent. So, and wasn't triggered as much by some of the things that were, the symptoms. And so, it really helped a great deal.
Where's been some of your favorite places to travel?
Well, we had fairly young kids at the time, so we weren't going too far. We were staying in, we go to the Caribbean, we go to Grand Cayman, we go to Turks, we go to, we go to Florida, we go to California, we go to, just places where it's a little bit warmer,
Fun for the
and we're
kids.
able to, kind of get off the grid and just kind of hang out and relax, have some good food, work out, get some sun, decompress. And then
That's the
go
way to do it.
back and get back into the grind.
So what's it like working with your wife and building a business together, and what makes it different and unique? Well Inspired Travels.
It all, as everyone might know, it poses its challenge, but it's also great. You get to build something together. You get to be passionate about something together, and see it kind of grow into what it's gotten to now. It's been a lot of fun. It is ever evolving. You start the business, start kind of getting up and running and starting going, and COVID happens, and you're like, oh, okay then. And then that kind of, we're still doing stuff, but not to the level that you're expecting. And you're trying to figure out how to position the company and things like that. And it also allowed me a lot of time to talk to people and just kind of explain our vision for the company, why you may or may not want to use us, why we are a fit for you, and maybe you are a fit for us, why you may not be a fit. You may
So
not be a fit for
what
us,
is that value
we may
prop?
not be a fit for you. Just, we're boutique. We don't want 5,000, 10,000 customer, whatever. We're very selective with our time because it is our time. We value our time. We want to make sure that we're immersing ourselves in your lives to get a better understanding of who you are, what you're all about, how best we can help you with your travels and have successful travel memories with your family, with your coworkers, with your spouse, with on and on. Maybe you're doing a wellness trip on your own and you need to do whatever. So it's really just kind of getting a better understanding of who you are, what you're looking for, what you're all about, how we can best serve you and help you have the best experiences possible. And
I love it.
and from that, it then takes off from there.
What advice would you give others out there to working with their spouse, significant other?
Oh,
Don't. No, I'm kidding.
yeah.
Do you have like separation of church and state? Like when you say you and your wife are going out
Yeah.
for
I
a
mean,
date night, and you're like, we're not talking
It
work.
can't be 24/7. You got kids, you got dinner table, you need to get away from that and get back to family, get back to, figuring out what's going on with everybody. You do need a separation 100%. And you also need to listen. Like it's a partnership, and just like everything else in life, and you have to listen. I don't know everything. I got my blind spots just like everybody else does. And sometimes as you talk through things, you're like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And so you're able to kind of really look at what the client is looking for and needs or wants. And as you're talking it through, you're like, oh, that actually makes sense. Yeah, that actually makes way more sense than what I thought. And so, when you get two different ways of looking at things, and sometimes 3 and 4 with our staff, you're able to really provide a much better service and provide a much better experience because you're looking at it in a number of different lights, and you're able to kind of troubleshoot on the fly before something even happens.
Fascinating. What else is interesting you these days? What else are you working on? What are you building?
Working on a few investments, talking about a few things. I got a whiskey coming out soon.
My ears just perked up. I'm a brown spirits guy,
incredibly
Chris.
tasty. The Journey whiskey will be out in stores very, very soon. It is. We're excited. We've we've been having a few random taste tests around. I was in Toronto last week, and everybody that had it was raving about it. So hopefully that takes off. We're excited about it. It's going to be a fun project to do with my brother. My brother and I are doing that, and then just other interesting things that kind of get brought to me where you kind of look through it and get some other things coming down the pipe as well.
I love it, and we're going to table that. I'm going to talk to you about the whiskey. I got something interesting to tell you about that afterwards. So let's bring it home here. And Chris, I love talking to folks from different walks of life, different backgrounds, whether it be entertainment, celebrities, technology, entrepreneurs. And I ask them all the same two last questions. And the first one is, Chris, what is the single greatest piece of advice that you've ever received that you take action on daily? Whether it be something when you wake up in the morning, you say to yourself, something to keep you focused.
The greatest piece of advice I received, and it's from two of my mentors, when I got hurt in Philly. I got hurt and I was down and I was struggling, and I called my two mentors. They flew in almost simultaneously, back to back, and sat down with me. And both of them said the same thing, which is very telling. The first year you're out, don't do anything. Don't agree to do, you're going to get hit up by all these different charities and philanthropical efforts that, want you to be a part of their organizations. You're going to be hit up by this business. You're going to get hit up by this investment. Don't do anything. You're not going to be thinking straight. You're going to want to jump into everything. You're not going to have an understanding of, is it a passion? Do you really want to do it? And so for the first year, I said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I just was like, and from that, you're taking a list of everybody that's kind of come at you with something, and you're just kind of writing them all down and doing your research and kind of thinking it through. And does it make sense? Do you have the time? Do you want to invest your time? And so from that, it actually allowed me to really kind of get out of my own head, create some processes, and have the ability to kind of look at things and go, okay, actually that makes sense. And that's a great fit because here's what I'm passionate about. Here's what I want to do. As you sit back, start getting healthy, start going through things. And it was incredibly thoughtful and smart, with both of them having gone through it a couple times. I think they had learned their lesson and imparted some tremendous wisdom on me. And every player that I talk to and every person I talk to, when, maybe they sell their company or they're leaving the game of whatever, I'm like, don't do anything. Here's great advice that I was given that served me well. Don't do anything for a year. You're going to jump into something. It may not be a fit. You're going to have, if it's a business, you might lose money. You might struggle, with your partnership, whatever is going on. Just think it through, have your wits about you. Don't rush into things right off the bat. And it's been impressive and very good to me.
And I think the beautiful part about it is that you pay that advice forward.
Yeah.
You share that wisdom upon others. So Chris, last but not least, you look back on your life and your career and you think about those tough times, those hard times when you were struggling, when you were down on the ice, looking up, when you got that stick to the eye and you didn't know whether you were going to play again. You didn't know what was next for you. And you had to pull yourself up and you had to pull yourself forward. And in the same breath, Chris, when you look back now with gratitude at this life that you built, your family, your wife, the legacy that you're going to leave is one of the greatest freaking NHL players of all time and great father, great husband. What keeps you in focus? What is your compass? Chris Pronger, what is your North Star in life?
Well, I think first and foremost, my family and our kids and my wife and kind of what we've built together. She was a part of the second half of my career. And, and watching our kids and being there to be a good father, a good husband. I worked incredibly hard to be the player that I was and been able to use that to springboard me to have the luxury to pick and choose what I want to spend my time on. And so that has given me a lot of leeway in being around for my kids, being there for their sports, their school plays and school things. And so being able to pick them up a carpool, drop them off, and all that kind of stuff that most people don't have the opportunity to, because they got to go to work, because they got to travel, because they got to do whatever. And having been there to be able to, be a full-time dad for most of it.
I love it.
A couple, the two older ones, obviously I was still playing for a little bit in Anaheim and Philly, but, my daughter was very young when I got injured. So she didn't have to worry about that. I was always around when she was starting school. So having that luxury is pretty, is incredible.
Great perspective. It's got to be fun when Chris Pronger is your carpool dad, coming to pick the daughter up from dance practice. Chris, I want to thank you for choosing to spend time with me and my audience. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. I love sharing your story. I wish you the best of luck with all your future endeavors. Keep inspiring everybody out there. I want everyone to check out wellinspiredtravels.com and thepost.co. Also, I didn't get to touch on that. Where else could folks find you? Where could they connect with you? Where could they learn more?
Let's see. I'm on Instagram that's a good question.
Chris Pronger?
I think it's Chris Pronger. I don't know.
I just tagged you. Yeah.
I am at
Chris Pronger.
At the Chris Pronger. On Instagram at the Chris Pronger. On Twitter at Chris Pronger. On Instagram at Well Inspired Travels. And on Instagram at The Journey, JRNY, whiskey without an E. And also on Twitter with The Journey. And we'll be rolling out, we're a coming soon brand, but we'll be rolling out all our initiatives here shortly.
Cool. Everyone stay in touch with that. Chris Pronger, hang with me for one moment here. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed this show. Sharing means caring. If you liked it, leave a review, a rating. It goes a long way. Remember, you can find us more at thepozcast.com, all the social media channels. Remember, take care of each other, look out for one another, and catch us next week for another great episode of The Pozcast. Take care, everybody.